This video has been a long time coming, years in the making. I know a lot of you have wanted me to explain what went down in Baton Rouge and the connection to TYT, and today is the day. Get your popcorn ready, get seated, because I'm going to go over all of this. And the reason why I'm doing this, the reason why I'm bringing this up now, the reason why we're talking about this, has to do with my appearance on Tim Pool's Culture War with Emma Vigeland, because Emma Vigeland decided that it was appropriate to label Tim Pool as the inspiration for the Hispanic neo-Nazi shooter down in Texas, based on just 4 screenshots that were displayed. I'm not going to let that pass. I'm not going to let that slide, and that's why it was brought up by me on that episode of Culture War, and I completely annihilated Emma Vigeland on that point. I completely showed her for the hypocrite that she is, and I didn't expect it to go further than this. I didn't expect it to be addressed by TYT, but since they have addressed it, since they've continued to downplay it, since they've continued to lie about it, I've decided I have all the evidence, I have all the screenshots, I have all the videos, I have everything close to the 7-year anniversary, and I'm going to drop it all in this video for you guys to see, so it's undeniable. You want to lie? You want to pretend that this was no big deal? You want to pretend that this wasn't direct inspiration? I'm going to rub your face against it. You want to say that Tim's screenshots or screenshots of one episode of Tim's show equals Tim Pool inspiring somebody right in front of my face? I'm going to staple this to your forehead so the world can see it every time they look at you. So the Damage Report put down this segment called Tim Pool Humiliated by Emma Vigeland on his own show. And of course, because this didn't happen, they show one clip of Emma reading medical organizations, Tim for a second thinking they were government organizations, then Emma saying, no, they're not government organizations, and then Tim saying, I take your point, and then they cut the clip right there. Don't believe me? Here's what they showed.
Organizations who have formally recognized this include American Academy of Pediatrics, American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, American Academy of Family Physicians, American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, American College of Physicians, American Medical Association, American Pediatric Association, dozens and
Remember
dozens
when doctors
of the
said smoking was good for you? You're not citing science. You're citing government approval.
No, I'm not. I am citing.
And that's fine.
What does the government have to do with it? These are medical organizations.
Okay, sure. Fair point.
Oh, real big red flag when you're saying Tim owned by Emma Vigeland, and then you show Emma Vigeland reading a list of medical organizations, and you cut that from the entire context of the conversation, and then you pretend like it's no big deal. Now, this is a normal thing I would expect from TYT. This is all the left has in terms of these segments. So I was like, whatever, I'm not going to respond to this. They're already getting ratioed into the ground. When I looked, it was about 4,500 likes to 10,000 dislikes. No big deal. I'll move on with my life. But then somebody recommended that I watch the rest of the video. And of course, that is our friend of the channel, Atheism is Unstoppable, who still makes great content. You can watch him over on subscribestar.com/atheism. He told me that I needed to check it out. He told me that I needed to hear what these people said about what I said so that I can address it. And that's exactly what I'm going to play for you.
One of the things that triggered Tim very obviously is when Emma said, sorry, Tim, your program appeals to Nazis. And he lost his mind. He was like, how dare you say that? And then he brought TYT into the equation and said TYT was something that one of the shooters at one point back in the day watched and then went out and said, I'm now going to go commit a mass shooting because I'm the one to stop this.
So this is Brett Ehrlich right here, and Brett Ehrlich is an absolute coward. First of all, he attributes quotes to Tim Pool that I said. I said those things, and I didn't say one of the shooters vaguely this or that. I said Gavin Long was directly inspired by the Young Turks. Gavin Long made reaction videos to Young Turks videos about the police. There were calls for violence in those Young Turks videos. He had a specific affinity for protecting black women in his mind, and one of those videos in particular was a video where the Young Turks baselessly speculated that a woman slammed by the police was in fact slammed because she was a black woman, even though in reality she was a white woman. Do you think I would make a specific claim like that without the evidence. Do you think I don't have all of those videos at the ready to play for you right now? But Brett, our buddy, unwilling to confront the reality that this man was inspired directly by the Young Turks to kill police officers, vagues it up and says, oh, at one point in time, sometime in the past, this guy watched one of our videos. That's not the claim. That's Emma Viglin's claim, by the way, that this guy had screenshots from one episode of Timcast IRL. My claim was far more specific, and the reason I made this claim, it used to be at TYT, and Gavin Long, who was the Baton Rouge shooter, watched, reposted, and did reactions to Young Turks videos. A lot of them were straight misinformation. There was one in particular where they were going after a cop who slammed a woman, which, by the way, the cop acted inappropriately, but they wildly speculated that it was a black woman. It turned out to be a white woman. And there was a call in the video of like, what do you do if you see a pregnant black woman being assaulted by a cop? Gavin Long said he's going to step up. You can watch these videos. They're available online. And he shot 4 cops.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't my comment.
I didn't say, no, hold on. I didn't say it was your commentary, but you're saying screenshots on this guy's phone, big problem. I got to bring it up right here. But have you ever covered at all what inspired Gavin Long?
Because
he killed 4 police officers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. That wasn't my coverage.
Is because Emma Viglin has no standards, as stated by me in the Culture War episode.
He's obviously doing Grundle. That's the answer.
I guess.
They know how to just
really
suck
fast.
up to people.
Wait. Hold on, I want to respond because, I like 8 years ago when that shooting happened, there were a lot of people that were saying that TYT was responsible. Here's the thing, shooters can be inspired by literally anything. The mere fact that someone says that they watched something does not by itself mean that the host of the show is responsible. There are additional aspects of critical thought that need to be considered. So first of all, have the host in the show repeatedly said that political violence is not acceptable under any circumstances. That seems like a relevant thing to consider. All of the hosts at TYT constantly say that. No bones. We're not trying to like, wink and a nod to the audience like, hey, maybe we get to do something extreme. No, it's unacceptable in all cases. Cenk has been very clear about that. Anna's been very clear about that. I've been very clear about that. All of us have. Whereas Tim Pool literally has guns on his set.
So here you have John Irola looking very uncomfortable, doubling down on Brett Ehrlich's point that the Young Turks never would call for violence. The Young Turks, this guy could be crazy and he could be inspired by anything, but it's not like TYT specifically is the thing that inspired him just because he watched one video at one point. So if screenshots, which are of clips that weren't even him speaking, is Tim Pool inspiring the shooter, then how come you've like never done this commentary at a place you used to work at of direct inspiration? Like he saw a clip, cuts to himself saying, I'm going to step up because I'm the real one.
I've never heard of this. So
that's interesting that you never heard of that.
Well, so it happened. Why do you think it is that your former program appealed to mass shooters so much?
Again, I was very clear, very specific about my claims on the Culture War episode. Unambiguous in exactly what I was referring to, and the fact that cowards like John Irola have to vague it up, they have to hide the ball on this one, they have to say, well, it's no big deal, this wasn't direct inspiration, I'm not going to address the specifics of the claim, really goes to show you the absolute cowardice of the Young Turks in every regard. Not only did they directly inspire Gavin Long, not only did their bad reporting directly inspire Gavin Long, their false reporting, but then the Young Turks, after the fact, decided to smear conservatives as responsible for his actions, and then they copyright claimed the evidence in order to hide it. And I have proof of all of this. You guys have been awaiting this, so let's get into it.
Before they took down his YouTube channel, and in the immediate aftermath of his shooting, I went to his YouTube channel. Called himself Cosmo. He had a channel called I Am Cosmo. And he had a couple videos on there from the Young Turks. He had this one right here. It was with Cenk Uygur, Jimmy Dore, and some random woman. And it was called Cop Knocks Woman's Teeth Out in Illegal Arrest.
So this is a screenshot from Long's YouTube channel. As you could see, this specific Young Turks video is there, and remember, Gavin Long would do reaction videos to the Young Turks, like a video response person, but he would be affirming their positions. Now, in this video, again, they talk about the case that I referred to. A white girl got slammed by the police, broke her teeth, the police officer was fired because he was in the wrong.
But what's wrong with this guy? Is it like a power thing? Is it roid rage? Is it something like weirdly sexual?
I would guess the woman was not white who he did this to.
Oh.
I would guess. I'm not sure.
That's funny.
So in this video, not only do you see Jimmy Dore basically speculate that the woman was a black woman when, of course, she was in fact a white woman, and this not really go challenged by anybody in the group, but you also have him say, when do we fight the cops? When do I give a little bit of resistance?
But that's the weirdest thing when you're around cops, right? You're like, oh, you want to be like compliant, right? But at the same time, if you don't know they're going to slam your head into a car or something, like you don't want to be so compliant.
Right.
Like, so when do I fight them? When do I give a little resistance? When do you?
Now you might be thinking, oh, Jimmy's just speaking out of turn or whatever. It's not like Gavin Long directly responded to this, but here's the thing. He directly responded to this. Again, this wasn't just watch some videos. This was reposted, did reactions to, and let's hear Gavin Long and tell me if something sounds familiar.
And another thing, it's not really a principle, but it is in a way. So I just wanted to bring up when the Native Americans, when they were extincted by the same people that run this country, my question to you, just something for you to think about, at what point should they have stood up? That's something for y'all to think about. I've already meditated upon it. At what point should the Native Americans who are extinct, at what point should they have stood up? That's every individual has to think about that individually. You got to take that within and you consider that. So I'm out here in these streets, your brother Cosmo, salute to you. You remember, you luck up, you get up, and you don't ever give up.
You don't want to be so compliant.
Right.
Like, so when do I fight them? When do I give a little resistance? When do you?
My question to you, just something for you to think about, at what point should they have stood up?
So when do I fight them? When do I give a little resistance? When do you?
Isn't that eerie? That Jimmy says, when do I fight the cops? When do we give a little resistance? It doesn't go challenged by anybody on the Young Turks panel, on this specific panel. They're falsely reporting a story that particularly fed that niche of Gavin Long, and you can hear Gavin repeating that. And since we know Gavin Long killed 4 police officers, we know what his answer was to that question. Again, direct inspiration from the Young Turks, and that's not the last of it. There's more reaction videos from Gavin Long. Now again, the Young Turks' response to this was not to acknowledge it. The Young Turks' response to this was not to address it head on, was not to condemn the violence that they inspired. Their response to this was to label it right-wing terror. So the title of this video is 3 More Cops Killed, anti-government, quote, sovereign citizen group, end quote, member responsible. And in the description it says, police were recently targeted and attacked again, this time in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The attacker was a member of an anti-government sovereign citizen group and not affiliated with BLM.
The man who was killed in a shootout with police is believed to have been the only shooter. Many people were worried that there was an active shooter situation in the wake of that ambush. The police have come out and said that they do not believe that is the case. That person has been identified as an active member of the New Freedom Group, an anti-government group.
Hey guys, editing Sean here. So I went to look up this New Freedom Group because oftentimes what I see whenever a black person who's motivated by anti-white sentiment commits an attack is label them as a sovereign citizen group, when in reality, in actuality, you look up these groups and you find that they're black nationalist groups, and sometimes they share some things in common with sovereign citizens, but in reality, they are not what you would think of when you think of a right-wing group. And guess what I found out? The New Freedom Group that they put forward, they can't confirm that it exists. Reuters and the Southern Poverty Law Center both have never heard of this group, can't verify their existence, yet it is stated by John Iadarola in order to make you think that this was a random, non-racially motivated, right-wing act of terror, just like all those other sovereign citizen attacks that are definitely white people. That's why we didn't mention Gavin Long's race.
We've seen in the past, over the past 5 years plus, ambush-style attacks against police officers, one of the preferred tactics of these anti-government groups. They will call in for police to come to their home, EMS to come to their home, and then they will attack them. This appears to be one of those sorts of attacks.
So 2 days after the Young Turks inspires this person to commit this crime, the same day, by the way, that the Young Turks actually published this video, July 19th of 2016, that they copyright claimed their videos, including Gavin's other video that we're going to get into, the reaction video to the Young Turks off the channel. They're blaming the right wing and running cover for Black Lives Matter. They don't mention Gavin's race throughout the whole course of this. They just talk about right-wing terror. So they can inspire a terror attack directly, and then they'll pin it on their political opponents. That's what John Iadarola did right there.
Here's an image of this video on his channel. Of course, his channel is deleted now. 2 days after Gavin Long killed those officers, the Young Turks decided to cover up their association with this guy. What did they do? They filed a copyright claim against him for both videos that he had mirrored.
Now again, credit to Devin Tracy, Atheism is Unstoppable, for running this down nearly 7 years ago when this happened. His old video documenting the connection between Long and TYT and the cover-up has been an invaluable resource, and I highly recommend you go over and support him at subscribestore.com/atheism. Again, it will be the top link in the description because I couldn't have had access to all of these clips without his assistance. So go watch his content. It's absolutely amazing on these kind of topics. And one of the gems from his video is this tweet from Gavin Long to show you exactly where he's coming from. And considering the Young Turks don't name his race and just identify him as a vague sovereign citizen in this video, in fact, they make it the forefront of their video title to say this was a right-wing guy, I think this is an invaluable resource. Now, Long was tweeting about the Dallas shooter, and he said the following: "The shooter was not white, all caps. He was one of us. Hashtag my religion is justice, at Tariq Nasheed, at Zoe Williams, at Corey Holcomb." Now, are we surprised to hear familiar names like Tariq Nasheed being added by this person? Are we surprised that he is happy that the shooter was also black? Again, somebody who also contributed to the inspiration of his actions. Absolutely not. Again, this is somebody who hated white people. He hated the police. He thought the police were evil white racists just hunting black people. And he got those ideas from a variety of sources, but specifically from the Young Turks, as I'm going to show you with this other reaction video.
He had no reason to arrest her.
And she's not going anywhere. He already said there wasn't a crime that was committed. Yet you are black, and I'm a little pissed off that you're not doing exactly what I said. So I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to brutalize you right now in public in front of a school. I don't give a because I'm a cop, and that's why I became a cop, because I'm not a big thinker, and I like brutality.
What I can imagine goes through, I don't know what goes through his mind, but, like, they've got to think this through differently. Like, if you don't think, like, I got it. In hindsight, if she'd given her last name, we probably don't have this situation. But you have to recognize as a police officer, what's going to happen if she doesn't? What's going to happen when I touch her?
Okay, I'll go out on a limb on this one. I'll go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say, generally speaking, women do not want their bodies touched by random, strange men. But again, I just went out on a limb to say that one, and specifically, black women, which I know they don't want their body touched by strange, random men.
Of which, in this situation, in this circumstance, there is no risk. You're okay.
There's no risk and no crime.
There's almost no situation. By the way, there's nothing to de-escalate. Nothing's happened. They come in, they escalate.
That's right.
The cops came in. You're supposed to be the de-escalator. You came in and escalated the situation.
There's almost no situation. By the way, there's nothing to de-escalate. Nothing's happened. They come in, they escalate.
That's right.
The cops came in. You're supposed to be the de-escalator. You came in and escalated the situation, which makes no sense. Police officers are supposed to make peace. You came in and made it war.
Now, in this video, Jimmy Dore is, of course, doing his bloodthirsty, the cops are coming to get you, whole shtick. And I have to give credit, of all the Young Turks hosts, the only person who stood up, was Ben Mankiewicz. If you listen to Ben Mankiewicz's commentary, and by the way, I'm going to link the full videos in the description from the Young Turks, because they've taken down none of these videos. All they did was inspire Gavin Long to commit a terrorist attack. They copyright claimed them on Gavin Long's channel, but Ben Mankiewicz deserves none of the smoke. He is reasoned. He talks about what you should do in this scenario. And by the way, don't think I didn't notice that John Iadarola is right there as Jimmy Dore's ranting. Mr. Oh, we don't hide the ball. We're not ambiguous about violence. Wait till I show you John's cowardly reaction. Wait till you see the smug John Iadarola who's looking into the camera like, huh, how could I even be expected to address this? React to Jimmy Dore with no condemnation, with nothing.
And that's the kind of city you want to run, where the cops cuff people, where they already on camera admitted there isn't a crime. She doesn't have to give her name. So they're illegally, and then you're defending that. They're illegally doing that. So again, this is the culture of America. We're in a police state. Police get to do whatever they want, even though it's illegal. We all know that she does not have to give her name. The cop already said it wasn't a crime, yet they brutalize her anyway, and the city defends them, and everybody's okay with it because they're cops.
No, I'm not okay with it. I wouldn't give a damn if we have 7 billion people on the planet. Listen, if 6,999,999,000 of you were okay with this, I wouldn't be okay with it. I would have rebelled. I would have stepped in. I would have came through. I would have not complied. I would have died by protecting that woman.
Now again, you could see Gavin Long reacting to the Young Turks, and what makes this even creepier is in his glasses reflection, you can actually see the Young Turks video that he's reacting to. You can see where he's pausing it to insert his commentary, where of course he's signal boosting the anti-cop messaging. Again, you hear it that he's specifically obsessed with black women, which goes back to our previous video about how they misreported that person who was attacked as a black woman. And by the way, speaking of John Iadarola, since I have the original full video, which has not been taken down, he actually opened this by identifying the race of the woman as the most prominent thing to, of course, imply racism, because if a white person does anything to a black person, if a white cop does anything to a black person, it must be, by John Iadarola's logic, race.
Earlier this year, 2 women got into a traffic dispute in Barstow, California. Importantly, in this case, one was white and one was black.
So again, I need to reiterate, the standard that was put forward against me, against Tim, on Timcast IRL, were screenshots on this guy's social media page. So I'm not saying that you can't talk about these issues, or you can't say these incendiary things, or anything like that. I'm going by Emma Viglin's dumb standard that she didn't think through, and comparing and contrasting screenshots of time codes where Tim wasn't even talking, somehow making him responsible, to Gavin Long directly being inspired, directly repeating the false talking points from the Young Turks, and then acting based on that bad information. I'm making a much clearer point than the Young Turks are making, and there's a reason why they have to hide behind the ambiguity of, oh, maybe he watched some of our stuff sometime. No, he was directly inspired by you.
If my life, listen, she's going to be protected, period, whether my life gets taken or not. And this is a man's duty, you see. I'm not okay with it. Whenever it's a black man, then it's domestic violence. But see, what I see when I look at that, a woman, see, these officers aren't thinking. So I'm not thinking. I'm instincts without thinking. This is what I mean. You gotta start being like this, because they're not thinking. So you have to go off instincts. Because once you start thinking, you'll start confusing shit. You'll start second guessing natural instinct, which is natural law. You are naturally prone. You see, because again, I don't see uniform.
You see?
So that's the thing. I don't know what I would do in that situation. So if you go over and you confront the cops, which you would do in any other situation if they weren't cops.
That's right.
Yeah. If any other situation, if there were two grown men pouncing on a woman who is pregnant and she's screaming and she's not a threat to anybody, you would go over there and you would start by punching those guys. That's how you would start. You would start by punching them. Get off this woman. What is your problem? That's how you would start. But since they're cops, you can't do that. But maybe I would do that, and I'll take the jury trial. Maybe I would do that. I don't know. What if they were doing it to a dog? I wouldn't let somebody beat a dog. I wouldn't let that happen. I would stop the cops. But because they're cops, we're all supposed to shut down our humanity and walk away because they're doing the right thing. Those cops are brutal maniacs.
So this is what I see. I'm not thinking. I see two men, both armed, attacking a pregnant woman who was not attempting to harm them, and they know she's pregnant. No, she don't even got to be pregnant. She's a woman. She's not attempting to harm you. That's all I see. Two armed men. Again, let me repeat, because this is very simple. Again, thinking, when you start thinking, you're gonna complicate it. It doesn't take this much shit. Two men, one woman. Both of the men have weapons, and they're slamming her to the ground.
Again, the standard put forward by Emma Vigeland, repeated by these people on the damage report, with screenshots. I have Gavin Long with the Young Turks in the reflection of his glasses, repeating one-to-one the talking points of TYT. As they're saying them to him, as he's hearing them. Do I need to show you more Gavin Long reacting to the Young Turks with them in his glasses, with their video reflected upon him? It's symbolic of how he viewed the world and what he took out into the world. You can see it right there. Gavin Long is taking the messages from the Young Turks about how these cops are coming after black women. It's the first thing that John Idarola emphasized in this story. It's something that he picked up on, specifically separated out other women from black women. It's something that he's highlighted uniquely on his channel from the Young Turks in the past. And now he's saying he would not comply. He would have died for that. And he did die for it, and deservedly so. This bastard killed 4 cops. And by the way, when I say 4 cops were killed, that doesn't even begin to describe the horrors that Gavin Long inflicted upon these people, because 3 officers were killed that day. However, 1 officer ended up in a coma for 4 months, and when he came out, this was the state of him.
Nick, head forward for yes, and to the right for no. Show me yes. Big pull forward, chin to chest. There you go. Keep going. Good. Keep going. Perfect.
Now, the 3 that died on the spot were Montrell Jackson, Brad Garofalo, and Matthew Garrall. There were 6 wounded total, and the officer that I'm talking about who died later was fighting for his life. That was Baton Rouge Sheriff's Deputy Nick Thier.
Mirror, Nick. Follow the mirror. There's a voice.
All right.
Thier was shot in the head and the abdomen. He was in a coma for 4 months. And again, this is how he ended up. His young wife had to take care of him for years until he ultimately succumbed to his injuries last year and passed away. That was the result of putting out all that anti-cop propaganda, of all of that being absorbed by Gavin Long, of the lies of the Young Turks, misreporting of these stories, mishandling of these stories, giving people the misperception that it was a significant number of unarmed black people who were perfectly innocent just being killed by the cops due to evil white racism, and that is the result of it. That's what Gavin Long did. That's the legacy of the Young Turks when it comes to inspiring violent acts of terror.
Lying on her stomach, and with the parts it's getting everybody, she's screaming, lying on her stomach.
Yeah, what do you do in that situation if you're there? If you're a person and you see these cops, you see these cops brutalizing.
Quoted as saying, like, they're the ones who are supposed to be helping me, but who is supposed to help me when they are attacking me?
I imagine that I would have been like, I feel like I would have, you know, I mean, first of all, I want to go up to her and I want to say, like, take a deep breath. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And I'm saying to the cops, could you just give her a moment.
They would crack you in the head
and
so
they'd
fast.
hit me with, like, don't approach this.
They wouldn't want you to come close.
They wouldn't want me to come close.
Yeah, they would get away, and if you don't get away, they're going to crack your head too. So what do you do in that situation? You just have to walk away and let an agent of the state brutalize a pregnant woman.
You take out your phone, you record it, but it was already recorded.
So you just what if they started punching her?
Right. Then
so you just let it go?
I don't know. What would you do?
At what point do you step in?
What point do you step in?
I would open my trunk and get a tire iron. And then call my dad.
I'm not sitting and watching. I don't know what I would do. And he says he'll get the tire iron. I don't know what I'll do, but I'm not sitting and watching. That's what I'm not doing. Everything else is off of that.
Again, it's all there. It's all on screen. You can hear what he's saying. He thinks that the police are out there hunting black people. Where do you think he got that idea? The answer, again, on screen. The Young Turks are reflected in his glasses as he's saying this, as he's talking about how he's going to protect that woman, how he's going to defend black people, how it's different when it's black people. All of this nonsense that's fed to him directly by people at the Young Turks, he is reacting to, he is absorbing, and he's making his call to action right here. He's saying that he's going to step up in this video, in response to a Young Turks video, direct one-to-one inspiration, not screenshots that they found on his social media, direct reaction to the bull that's being put forward by the Young Turks, to the anti-white racial propaganda being put forward by the Young Turks, to the anti-cop propaganda that's being put forward by the Young Turks. And when this happened, when they discovered this, what did they do? What did they do? They copyright claimed the video. They buried the story. That's what the Young Turks did. Then they blamed you. They said it was sovereign citizens, right-wingers. You did it. You on the right are responsible for this, even though we see it cooking in his brain right here on video.
It was already recorded.
So you just what if they started punching her?
Right. Then
so you just let it go?
I don't know. What would you
do?
At
what point do you step in?
What point do you step in?
I would open my trunk and get a tire iron and then call my dad.
I'm not sitting and watching. I don't know what I would do. And he says he'll get the tire iron.
Again, they're just egging it on right here. Ben is saying, I would record, I would do this, you can't act violently. And Jimmy is trying to get to the point where he's saying that he'll take out his tire iron. And by the way, there's John Iadarola, Mr. Unambiguously, we reject violence over at the Young Turks. Gavin Long is absorbing this. This is back in the day, before the shooting. John Iadarola maybe could have said something right here. He probably could have condemned Jimmy Dore's violence. Remember, the Young Turks do this all the time. But I said I would have his reaction. You're still going to have to wait on that because this story is not over.
So that's the thing. I don't know what I would do in that situation. So if you go over and you confront the cops, which you would do in any other situation if they weren't cops.
That's right.
Yeah. If any other situation, if there were two grown men pouncing on a woman who is pregnant and she's screaming and she's not a threat to anybody, you would go over there and you would start by punching those guys. That's how you would start. You would start by punching them. Get off this woman. What is your problem? That's how you would start. But since they're cops, you can't do that. But maybe I would do that, and I'll take the jury trial.
So this is what I see. I'm not thinking. I see two men, both armed, attacking a pregnant woman who was not attempting to harm them, and they know she's pregnant. No, she don't even got to be pregnant. She's a woman. She's not attempting to harm you. That's all I see. Two armed men. Again, let me repeat. Because this is very simple. Again, when you start thinking, you're gonna complicate it.
Now again, I will point out that Gavin Long right here is talking about how, he doesn't see the uniform, it's just a woman being assaulted. Again, that is directly from the Young Turks video. One-to-one inspiration. Need I say it one more time? You know what? I'll say it. One-to-one direct inspiration. But you know what? John Iadarola's right there. John Iadarola had the chance to step up. He heard Jimmy Dore calling for violence, saying that we need to get to the point where you physically fight back. And John Iadarola is not ambiguous. Look at the smug look on John Iadarola's face from last week, talking about how the Young Turks hosts have never made it unclear that they're against violence.
Have the hosts in the show repeatedly said that political violence is not acceptable under any circumstances. That seems like a relevant thing to consider. All of the hosts at TYT constantly say that. No bones. We're not trying to wink and a nod to the audience like, hey, maybe we get to do something extreme. No, it's unacceptable in all cases.
What does John Iadarola say? What does he do? Ben Mankiewicz has made his position clear. Ben Mankiewicz has done the right thing. Ben Mankiewicz has rejected Jimmy Dore's calls for violence. What does John do in response to this? In this video, still up right now on YouTube, even though it inspired Gavin Long.
Problem. That's how you would start. But since they're cops, you can't do that. But maybe I would do that, and I'll take the jury trial. Maybe I would do that. I don't know. What if they were doing it to a dog? I wouldn't let somebody beat a dog. I wouldn't let that happen. I would stop the cops. But because they're cops, we're all supposed to shut down our humanity and walk away because they're doing the right thing. Those cops are brutal maniacs. That's what, did you see how they had her? She's a woman dropping off her second grade kid. There was no crime committed, yet we're going to brutalize this woman because she didn't do exactly as I said, even though my request is illegal.
Yeah. And again,
it goes back to the mindset of the people who join the police. People who join the police like brutality. That's why they're cops.
Yeah, that's right. John, Mr. Today tough guy, back then when it mattered the most, just nods and says, yeah, that's it. He agrees with them. Doesn't say anything. Doesn't address it. Mr. I'm going to stand up against the violence. Now you might say, Jimmy Dore's not on the Young Turks anymore, so this isn't really relevant. He was the one really egging things on. But the thing is, that doesn't matter. Jimmy wasn't fired because of this. He wasn't disciplined because of this. He left on good terms, and then they had a falling out. And again, if the Young Turks had changed, if they had changed in their police coverage, if they had stopped racializing each and every one of these stories, maybe you would have a point. If they had stopped direct calls for violence, maybe you'd have a point. But here's a call for violence from a Young Turks video from June of this year.
Absolutely, and don't be afraid to get involved. Like Benny said, putting yourself in between in the situation. I know we're not supposed to, support violence, but hey, sometimes it's like punching a Nazi. You just got to get in there and, make it happen.
No bones. We're not trying to wink and a nod to the audience like, hey, maybe we get to do something extreme.
I know we're not supposed to, support violence, but hey, sometimes it's like punching a Nazi. You just got to get in there and, make it happen.
That's 1 month ago on a story, which, by the way, was about somebody destroying a cardboard pride display inside a Target store. This woman concludes it with, well, I know you're not supposed to call for violence on the internet, but sometimes you gotta get in there and punch a Nazi. And then she smiles, like it's funny. Like the Young Turks haven't directly inspired violence in the past. And by the way, it's not just Gavin Long. It's not just this story. If you don't think I have more information on this, you're crazy. But this is what they do. A month before, within the same month of John smugly saying the hosts are totally not ambiguous about this. Again, we have other stories from the Young Turks of people threatening to smack the crap out of people.
So I've had it and I'm done. And if I see Will Kane, I'll slap the out of him and show him what a large black man with superhuman strength can do.
Not too long ago, the Young Turks had this Asian woman talking about how she wants to beat up Matt Walsh. She wants to fight Matt Walsh. Why? Because Matt Walsh has political opinions that she disagrees with.
I also know women who could beat the crap out of him physically. Like he thinks he's this. Women don't understand violence. Oh, let's do this, Matt.
Okay, we'll just
let's freaking do this. I never played football, and I have no interest in football, and I don't care about football, but I care about punching Matt Walsh in the face in a sanctioned way.
Fair, sanctioned way.
No bones. We're not trying to wink and a nod to the audience like, hey, maybe we get to do something extreme.
I never played football, and I have no interest in football, and I don't care about football, but I care about punching Matt Walsh in the face in a sanctioned way.
Fair, sanctioned way.
It's funny because earlier on in this segment, you would hear Brett Ehrlich say, oh, well, people don't watch each other's shows, so they don't really know what they're saying.
So ridiculous. So I watched a lot of this. I don't really watch Tim Cass, and there's a real conversation to actually be had where Tim is talking about how Emma doesn't watch his program, and Emma's talking about how Tim doesn't watch Emma's program. They all have these notions of what the other one does just because they respond to what surfaces.
Well, here's the thing, Brett, buddy pal. I'd watch the Young Turks. I know the things that you're saying. I know that when John Iadarola smugly looks into the camera and says the Young Turks is full of people who unambiguously condemn violence, that is false. That's a lie. You have calls to violence. Again, I didn't even have to go beyond this month that I'm shooting this video in to prove this in your videos all the time. You always play fast and loose with it, and when something does happen, when something does pop off, you either don't cover it or you blame your political opponents. So let's be clear. Gavin Long was directly inspired by the crappy, terrible anti-propaganda, some of it directly false propaganda from the Young Turks. He reposted Young Turks videos. He did reactions to Young Turks videos. You can actually see with the reflection of the video in his glasses, him absorb that and make the decision to step up and fight back against the law enforcement. That is the direct call in that video. And John Iadarola, this smug dope, when he was confronted with that, when he saw Jimmy Dore doing that, he did nothing. He said yes and nodded his head because John is a coward through and through. That's who he is. Then, when this came out, what did they do? They blamed their political opponents. They said it was a sovereign citizen, and in the description, the first thing they do was try to obfuscate BLM from all responsibility. Then they copyright claim the evidence. They try to bury the story, but now it's out in the public. Now it's open for everyone to see. You want to play this game where you say, oh, screenshots on somebody's social media equal direct inspiration? Well, guess what? This video is out here, and you need to address it. You need to step up and acknowledge what happened. Be a man, be an adult. Everybody at the Young Turks, anybody at the Young Turks needs to acknowledge what happened here and say that you are wrong. You want to move on? You want to apologize? Stop trying to bury the truth and acknowledge it. I know it's easier to ignore hard truth in favor of a comfortable lie, but this has gone on long enough. We're coming up on the 7-year anniversary. July 17th of this year, I want to see something from the Young Turks where they actually address it, where I don't have John smugly looking at the camera saying that's ridiculous and absurd, and oh, he may have watched one video. No, it's direct inspiration. Need I say it again? Now look, introspection is hard. It is hard to conduct yourself in the political space while simultaneously thinking about how somebody who's not in the right state of mind might react to some of your rhetoric, might react to some of the things that you say, and what that could end up leading to out there in the world. And honestly, this is something that I've struggled with. This is something that I've thought a lot about, because if I were in the position where I inspired somebody, even though I actually don't call for violence on this channel, and I'm pretty careful about what I say, I would feel absolutely horrible. I would feel absolutely terrible. And this has led me to stray away from stories that I'm not all that interested in the first place that I could cover in order to get more views, because I do feel like some of the audience for that content is in a state of rage, and that might lead to negative downstream results. And if you guys don't know what I'm referencing, it passed by June, the month of Pride, and I didn't do any Pride Month stories. And the reason for this is twofold. First and foremost, go look at the entire history of my channel. The gays, the transes, the LGBTQ XXIIPs has never been anything that has particularly interested me on this channel and interested me in covering it. And two, even though I've gone daily and I'm looking at more stories and I'm looking for more stories to cover, I don't want to highlight specific instances that I'm not all that invested in, that don't pique my personal interest just for the views, because the way that people are reacting to a lot of these stories is in a very negative way. So I don't want, just for the money, just for the clicks, just for the intention, just to inspire somebody or inadvertently influence somebody on this hot button topic when I'm not all that passionate about it. But those are the things that I think about. Those are the things that I have to concern myself with. Those are the things that I worry about, because sometimes I see it when I say something related to a crime or something like that. In the comments, some of you just don't get it. Some of you do not get my perspective, and it's troubling to me. But these are things that I actually think about. These are things that I'm actually concerned with. This is why I was so moved by the fact that you guys donated to Christiancito's GoFundMe, and you guys donated to the Give, Send, Go that we set up in order to replace that young man's teeth, because I know that you guys can do good if you're focused in the right direction. And all of the credit goes to you for that. You guys stepped up in that. but also I want to run a channel. I want to operate a kind of news outlet, whatever the hell I'm doing, commentary system that inspires people to do things like that and doesn't just gin up hysteria and direct people's rage at this weird looking person or whatever. So that's something that I want to focus and redirect on, and that's something that I'm concerned about while making my videos, and I've actually adjusted my content over time to align with those concerns. What bothers me is that John hasn't adjusted anything. They're calling for violence recently. That's why I highlighted them calling for violence recently. They're doing videos about how cops are executing people recently. Cenk said that in his debate with Destiny recently, even though this exact rhetoric is not true. It's not based in reality. Something like 9 unarmed black people are killed by the police every single year, and a lot of them are driving a vehicle at the cops or trying to go for the cops' guns, so it's really like 2 or 3, and people buy into this. They think there's a genocide against black people, and they ended up reacting, and they've never acknowledged this. They've never addressed this, and they smugly look into the camera and act like they're better than me. John Idarola, with this stupid face, is trying to flex on me without even naming me, without even addressing the issue, when he has not taken accountability. He's never addressed it, and his standard, his record, his history does not reflect the unearned sense of moral superiority that he's portraying. So yeah, John, while you pretend to be against violence, while you pretend to not be giving a wink and a nod towards violence, while in the same month you guys are calling for violence at the end of your video and smiling and laughing about it, I actually am against violence. I've said it clearly that the standard for using violence is self-defense from an imminent threat. That is the only point where it's justified, period, point blank. That is the end of the sentence. If you pick up a gun in order to accomplish a political means, then you've already gone to hell. That is not the proper way. You will be regarded as the monster that you are. You should be forgotten about. Your name should be eradicated from the history books because you violated the rules of our society. You violated what we actually believe in, what we should stand for, the people that we should aspire to be. I've made that clear. You have not. So don't flex your unearned sense of moral superiority anywhere near my direction when you're too cowardly 7 years later to even acknowledge your role in Gavin Long. When you're too cowardly 7 years later to even say his name, to even name the Baton Rouge shooting. You absolute weakling. Hey guys, editing Sean here. So I've been struggling with how I want to end this video, where I want to leave it off. Obviously, I started off incredibly angry at this topic, at the very dismissive way it was referenced on Damage Report, but also as I continued through watching this stuff, I started to get emotional, especially when I saw what happened to that sheriff's deputy who ended up facing a living death. And probably one of the reasons why that got to me a lot is because my entire ability to make a living, who I am as a person, is my ability to communicate. So when I see another man lose that ability in such a senseless act, it really got to me on an emotional level, and it really struck a chord with me, and actually made it difficult to insert those clips in this video, although I think that you needed to see them. But that being said, I don't want to leave the impression that there is no path forward. They could acknowledge this. It could happen. It is possible. And this isn't a situation where people are pure evil or whatever. This is a situation where they're in denial. Again, it's way more difficult to face a hard truth than to tell yourself a beautiful lie. And considering I had a wonderful conversation with Brianna Wu on Sitch and Adam last week, and I've been doing videos about places where Cenk is right, places where Anna Kasparian is right, I do think there is a path forward for some of these people to just come up and step up and do the right thing, and at least acknowledge that this happened. I mean, again, probably the best conversation I've ever had on the internet.com for 4 hours on criminal justice topics with Brianna Wu, which is somebody that many of you would dismiss completely out of hand from the jump, but it happened. Anna Kasparian, who I've made videos going after for years, is starting to come around on some issues, and it's happening. There is hope. They can do it. And I do think if anybody will do it, if anybody will address it, it will be Anna Kasparian. That's where I'm putting my money on. That's what I want to say. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Again, thank you to Atheism is Unstoppable, Devin Tracy, for putting this together years ago, so I have that resource to look back on. Go support him. Subscribestar.com/atheism. He still makes great content. And thank you to everybody who watches these videos. If not for you guys, I would have never had the chance to go on Tim Pool. I would have never had the chance to confront Emma Vigeland about this on air and cause these cascading events for this to be out there in the public, and maybe there's a chance this will be addressed. Maybe there's a chance this will be acknowledged. Maybe there's a chance that they won't be able to run away from this, but it's all dependent on you. It's all dependent on how far you guys push this story. If you like this video, then show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Baton Rouge. It's been a long time coming. Till next time.